teaching her an a beautiful crystal kunai gift to him by Ino, and the list just keep growing. He eventually gave up and slid against the wall of the house as he slid warm cup of tea shattering against the ground, responding his heart, tacking in his knees. He sobbing silently into his hands, eventually choking out what he had asked himself and God so many times. Why me? If you're looking out for a deep in forest of Konoha, you would have noticed a large parasite building in the middle of a dangerous forest. Even if you were to reach the large marble building, you would have to need a special access card, not to mention a fingerprints. However, if you ignored the beating sun and the annoying animals that seems to creep in every corner, you have to notice a man. He walked in the brisk, fast paced, and a determined look on his face as he reached the building. He scanned his fingerprints and entered the building room. He stood in way marked dark and uncared for. It was full of traps, and the smell was almost unbearable. This room was made to send people away and eliminate their curious as if they had gymnastic and guilt about the trap and open the large red door. At the other end of the room as he entered, the air was clean again and no smoke was in the area. This room was size of a ballroom and literally was vaulted furniture and crimson rug, golden chair and cream marbles floor show that this was place for a rich, the powerful, the strongest one, and the large throne sat at the top of a beautiful marble staircase. You would have to seen a beautiful woman sitting there. Her medium long hair and bright blue eyes could bring any man to following her under as she stood from her chairs. She walked elegant down the cream colored steps, her high heels the only sound quiet room if you weren't filled with enough insecurities to make you jump off a cliff. From her eyes you could look at the rest of her. She had a blood red lip and perfect skin. Her eyes were full with bloodlust, and she wore a red lance dress with whooshes around her feet. She wore glimmer green pants and golden bracelets. Her heels were silver, and two sides with her strapped on her thighs. Her blood red lips parts as she asked, "Mission status." Even her voice was full of elegance and beauty, but in her heart all of those looms was darkness. The blood you wish to spill shall be stained on these marbles floors soon, mid lady. Good, or else I have to kill you myself. Her voice point across the man's neck as she shivered before returning to his hungry sculpture. He loomed downwards and presence of this woman. He just wanted her. It was like he was hypnotized, snapping out of the daze. He was the beautiful woman approaching her. "I see you like my beauty. You're hungry for it," she whispered seductively in his ears, her arms wrapping around his neck elegantly. The man's lust took over as he rested to unch and pin the woman down and kiss her roughly. Kill them and lips may touch here soon. She's breathing tracting his lips, with her fingers scenting what he was thinking. Yes, ma'am, he yelled excitedly as he seductingly her. Now go before I spill your blood, she yelled angrily, waving the man away. Oh, poor Naruto. He doesn't know what's coming his way. Bloodlust set her file down. Quietly, she was happy that she had caught the murderer, but yet something in her stomach was nodding, telling her she was wrong. Deciding Nightfox would give her proper active, she ignored the feeling growing in her stomach and slid on her flat. After doing so, she headed off down the road. While walking, she was picking up some ramen from her nearby ramen store, Ichiraku Ramen, and picking up some ramen for Nightfox and her. Following the leaf path, Nightfox's house, she felt the feeling growing more in her stomach. She had talked to someone, yet she chose Nightfox. Why did she? She considered Nightfox her friend, and she thin lip tucked into smile strictly told herself, he's my friend and I know he'll know what to do. As her belief in Naruto grew, she caught herself saying, I believe in him because he can do anything. Naruto wiped out loud his cries of sadness, bearing in it his hands. He didn't know why he bothered living or existing. Everyone he loved died or forgot him. Everyone hated him, and the villagers would be happier if he just left the world. As the riot grew closer and closer to his house, Naruto continued to lay against the wall, losing his will to live. Tears still evading on his sun-kissed skin. So as he banged over the door, he simply ignored it. Nobody needed me anyways. Naruto smiled sadly, closely his eyes ashore, bracing himself for the torture. He didn't even bother to see who was at the door. When it flew open, Nightfox, a feminine voice yelled as Naruto's eyes fluttered open. Bloodbath? He asked, looking up at the woman from his spot against the wall. Your hands, she gasped, expecting Naruto's hands. My hands? Naruto asked, looking down at his hands. Bloody hands. During all his pain and sobbing, he had forgotten about the shattered teacup he had next to him. The glass had cut deep in his hands, and the pain continued to grow in his hands. As he continued to stare at it, Naruto looked up at Bloodbath, who was worried to inspect his blood hands. You don't care that I'm wearing my mask? Naruto asked, softly, afraid that if he spoke loudly, he would start sobbing again. No, you actually care, Naruto asked cruelly. Of course I do, Bloodbath gasped. She was taken aback by the question. She believed in him. He knew that was right. Yeah, right. You're just like the rest, Naruto sneered bitterly. Why? Bloodbath asked weakly. You made them hate me even more. You don't know, but the boy you accuse Naruto Uzumaki, that who I am, and you just sent all of them against me. So no, you don't care for me as a friend. You don't care. You wouldn't do that, he finished, as tears starting to form in his eyes. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I was so wrong. And I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but please forgive me, Naruto. I know I was wrong now. Now that I know who you are, you couldn't have killed Kakashi. You loved him. You talk about him all the time in the Ambu. So, for the love of God, Naruto, please forgive me, she cried, bowing down on the floor to Naruto. She cried softly, hating herself for how much she hurt him at the boy. It was her fault. He was broken. So you really even care for me? Naruto asked quietly, blood dripping from his hands. You would even protect me? He asked bitterly, his head still pressed against the wall. Bloodbath's eyes watered at the broken boy as she hugged him suddenly. Naruto was taken aback from the sudden contact, but slowly hugged back quickly, his body still weak from the injured. I will always protect you, Bloodbath wept, cupping his face. You will never to worry, she smiled while still sobbing her forehead against Naruto. I'm sorry, Naruto, she finished, hugging Naruto tightly. Naruto smiled softly, hugging her back weakly. Even a broken boy can learn how to love. Hope. Naruto sat timidly on the stool in Bloodbath's office. Bloodbath was certainly wrapping his hands with bandage, with cloth and tweezers she had used to clean off the blood, and picking up the glass shard of his hand, sat beside her, staying her otherwise clean table. Do you want me to clean that? Naruto asked, softly staring down at what his swinging legs, which weren't yet touching the floor. It's okay. I've dealt with worse on that table. Bloodbath smiled weakly before looking back down at Naruto's injured hands. How long will it take to heal? Naruto questioned, examining his hands. 2 weeks at most. Bloodbath spoke back, pushing her waist ponytail back, her shoulder. Sitting in silence, it seemed as if an awkward tense had filled the room ever since Bloodbath had found Naruto, who seemed ready to die. It felt as if there was rope in between them that could not be broken. Bowing their hair out of her face, Bloodbath looked up at Naruto. Blue eyes began to speak. So, are you hungry? She asked hesitantly, as if you're not sure. Keep her cold demeanor of an ambu or retrieved to loving, caring girl. If you have anything I can eat, it would be pleasant. Naruto smiled, sheeply playing with end of his bandage. All right, I'll make some food sitting on the bed and I'll serve it out when it's ready. Bloodbath smiled sweetly, trying to mask the nervousness and the guilt behind her eyes. Naruto nodded before walking the bloodbath had pointed to. It had crisp white sheets and pillow with pink swirls on it. Resting his head on the pillow, he clamped his hands on his stomach and stared up at the ceiling, fighting the fear that gnawing in his stomach. Even after Bloodbath had saved him, what am I so afraid of? Bloodbath, stirring the bowl of ramen, which was sitting on the stove, her first hand work, quickly to spice the food, as well as chopping some fruits on the side. Once the ramen was done cooking, she poured the content to the pot into the bright blue bowl sitting on the tray, placing the cup fruit and a pair of chopsticks next to the bowl and ramen. She left the tray and walked out of the kitchen, shutting the door behind her. She looked up from the tray to see Naruto laying on the bed, looking blankly at the ceiling. Hey, I have ramen, Bloodbath chuckled awkwardly, holding out the tray. Thanks. Naruto grinned weakly, taking the small tray